We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Ontario looks into upgrading schools in the face of the pandemic. British Columbia enters a second wave of COVID-19 transmissions. Canada's US border closure has been extended again. Canada's Indigenous peoples speak out against racism in healthcare. US gives full approval to antiviral remdesivir to treat COVID-19. Prague at a standstill amid partial virus lockdown. Public figures in Hawaii applaud the Iglesia Ni Cristo outreach, urges other groups to emulate. In sports, Canucks forward Adam Gaudette reflect on the new contract extension with the team. Hello everyone, you're watching Eagle News International from Canada. I'm Tiffany Elisassis reporting from Calgary, Alberta, bringing you stories from across the globe. In Ontario, the COVID-19 pandemic has promoted the government to invest in schools' infrastructure. Eagle News correspondent Ashley Scammer with the report.
Space has been a point of major concern in school classrooms for years, but especially now as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to pose major problems in the education system. For proper social distancing to happen in schools, more space is logically required. The province of Ontario looks to help alleviate this issue soon and for the years to come by building more schools and learning spaces. Take a look.
Today, I'm excited to announce that we're making an additional multi-million-dollar investment in the future of the education system. For the coming year, we're investing $550 million. I apologize, $550 million to build another 20 brand new schools and renovate 8 existing schools across Ontario.
This investment will make way for the building of 20 new schools, 8 school additions, and 870 licensed childcare spaces in the province this coming year. Here's Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, with the details.
Our investment announced today will help create nearly 16,000 new student learning spaces that meet the highest and safest standards, which we know from COVID-19 is priority number one. Today's $550 million investment is for this year alone, part of a much larger 10-year, $12 billion investment to rebuild Ontario's schools. That's supported by over $1.3 billion every single year to maintain our schools. Now we're supporting the next generation by building new schools right across this province.
The province is looking into creating 30,000 new childcare spaces and 10,000 spaces in schools in the next 5 years. Premier Ford highlights the importance of investing in the education of Ontario's youth.
As I've said before, if we want to invest in our future, we have to invest in our young people. And today, we're doing just that. This neighborhood continues to grow and thrive, and we need to make sure families and students not only have access to more spaces in schools, but also have access to better schools with modern facilities, the best possible learning environments where kids can reach their full potential and start down the road lifelong success.
The Premier also notes that these new learning spaces will aid in building more modern ventilation systems and will create hundreds of jobs that will aid in economic recovery. In Toronto, Ashley Sakmar, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
British Columbia enters its second wave of COVID-19 transmissions. Eagle News correspondent Kathleen Cruz with more.
BC Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry confirms that BC is now in its second wave of COVID-19 transmission, with now more than 900 active cases of COVID-19 in the province. More than 4,000 people under active health monitoring as a result of exposure to positive cases.
One can say that we are in our second wave here of our COVID-19 storm in BC, but we have control over what that wave looks like, and we have shown that we can do that. There continues to be COVID-19 transmission in many parts of our province, and we know that this is expected. This virus has not gone away, and it has shown us that it is now quite able to hide and spread in our communities around the province. Encouragingly, we in BC are not seeing exponential growth. We do have more people in hospital than we did a few weeks ago, but that has also stabilized. What we are seeing is continued ongoing growth and particular focus are hotspots, particularly where we have our largest population in the Lower Mainland. We need, however, to make sure that we are doing what we can to avoid a steep and sudden increase in new cases that we have seen in other parts of Canada, in our neighboring countries, and around the world.
Although the province remains under phase 3 of COVID-19 response, Dr. Henry reiterates that transmission rate remains low and British Columbians have the ability to decide what the wave would look like by continuing to follow the safety protocols. Most recent cases of COVID-19 transmission, however, are coming from various social events, causing clusters and outbreaks in long-term facilities, workplaces, and schools across the province.
If there is a major source of transmission, additional measures can and will be put in place if they're needed. We will use all the tools that are available, whether that is conditions tied to wedding licenses, restrictions on numbers in indoor gatherings, or other measures that we know will be effective in trying to break these large transmission events. The reality is that right now in BC, everywhere in BC, weddings, funerals, and other life occasions need to be small as possible. Every gathering needs to be our own household only, and at maximum, our safe 6.
In Vancouver, Kathleen Cruz, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Canada's U.S. border closure has been extended again. Eagle News correspondent Vanessa Condi reports.
Public Safety Minister Bill Blair has officially announced the border closure extension between US and Canada until November 21st, 2020. This is the 7th time it has been extended, with an increase in cases on both sides of the border. He mentioned on Twitter, decisions will continue to be based on the best public health advice available to keep Canadians safe. This restriction is where travel to Canada for discretionary reasons, non-essential, such as for tourism, entertainment, recreation, is currently prohibited for non-Canadian citizens. However, it has been eased to allow family members of Canadian citizens and permanent residents and international students to enter Canada. It has also been relaxed for people on compassionate grounds. There's been cases previously where families were separated even if the other family member was terminally ill. However, now, as long as they meet certain requirements, they may also be able to enter Canada to stay with family. I'm Vanessa Condi from Victoria, BC, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
The recent death of Indigenous woman Joyce Equinen in a Quebec hospital after being berated and subjected to racist comments by a nurse sparked an outcry that has emboldened Indigenous people across the nation to speak out against racism and share their own experiences with discrimination.
Que ce décès de Joyce ne se reproduise plus jamais à l'intérieur des institutions de santé. Plus jamais!
Pas besoin qu'il y ait un propos explicitement raciste pour que je sache qu'il y a des biais inconscients qui existent partout. Mais il faut dénoncer le racisme qu'on voit. Il faut arrêter de ne pas le dire à haute voix. Il faut le dire à haute voix. C'est pour ça que ça m'encourage, c'est que je me dis, quand je vois ces milliers de personnes qui étaient dans la rue avec moi à Montréal samedi passé, ça me fait plaisir, ça me donne espoir que ces gens-là vont commencer à parler à haute voix lorsqu'ils vont le voir. Puis ça me fait plaisir.
Vraiment un racisme systémique ou une discrimination systémique envers les populations autochtones qui entre en jeu systématiquement. Donc, à chaque fois qu'une personne autochtone entre dans nos services de santé et services sociaux, le fait qu'on pense que cette personne va être automatiquement violente, agressive, puis aussi on va mettre de l'avant un diagnostic présomptoire, si on veut, d'intoxication à des substances psychoactives. Donc, on va penser que cette personne-là est intoxiquée.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Thursday granted full approval to the antiviral drug remdesivir as a treatment for patients hospitalized with COVID-19, after conditional authorization was given in May. Gilead said the drug sold under the brand name Verclery was the only specific treatment for COVID-19 approval so far under a more rigorous process. However, other treatments have received authorization for emergency use, though that approval can be revoked once the public health emergency sparked by the coronavirus pandemic is over. Other medications like the steroid dexamethasone are also being used to fight against COVID-19. Gilead's shares on the New York Stock Exchange jumped 4% soon after the announcement. Europe and other countries such as Canada also have granted temporary approval for the use of remdesivir. Remdesivir, which is administered by an injection, was one of the first drugs to show relative promise in shortening the time to recovery in some coronavirus patients. But its efficiency in reducing the mortality rate is unproven. It can be administered to adults and children over the age of 12 who weigh more than 40 kilos, 88 pounds, who require hospitalization for the treatment of COVID-19, the illness caused by the novel coronavirus. The drug can only be given to patients in a hospital or equivalent setting. Emergency approval has been granted for its use on pediatric patients under the age of 12, weighing at least 3.5 kilos. President Donald Trump, who tested positive for the coronavirus early in October, was treated with remdesivir at a military hospital outside Washington, among other drugs. Prague's shops are closed following a partial lockdown imposed by the Czech government, with an exception for food stores, drugstores, pharmacies, and tobacconists. Data from the European Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, ECDC, shows the country of 10.7 million people has by far the most new cases and deaths per 100,000 inhabitants over the past 2 weeks in the EU.
Přijde mi spíš jako, že ty rozhodnutí jsou dělané strašně rychle, že se třeba řekne, že se řekne něco až ve čtvrtek a už v úterý prostě najednou jsou změny, to mi trochu vadí, ale co se týče těch rozhodnutí, že by to pro mě bylo jako omezující, to není, takže asi zřejmě je to prostě nutný, no, když ty kapacity v nemocnici jsou na tom čím dál hůř. Skutečně, no, mě vadí spíš školy. To je taková věc, jako já sice pracuju, ale že jo, dítě chodí do školy a to si myslím, že tam to chybí, no, ale asi taky se nedalo nic jiného dělat.
Mám to pozitivně, něco se s tím udělat musí. Je to samozřejmě pro nás, pro všechny nepříjemné, ale chvíli to musíme vydržet, nejspíš do Vánoc.
Coming up, public figures in Hawaii applaud Iglesia Cristo outreach, urges other groups to emulate. In sports, Canucks forward Adam Gaudette reflect on the new contract extension with the team. Eagle News International continues after this.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
I level you 450. If I want to 100%. Tracking back. Transaction eh.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News International from Canada. I am Tiffany Alisasis from Calgary, Alberta. Members of the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ in Hawaii recently held a drive-through food distribution drive in partnership with the nonprofit Aloha Harvest. Two of the state's well-known people observed the event and urged other groups to also help those in need. Eagle News correspondent Alfred Arsenas from our Hawaii Bureau was at the outreach event and files this report.
I am impressed by how efficient this operation is. There are so many helping hands. What I really like about this is the fact that the Church of Christ, Iglesia ni Cristo, has taken what we know is an issue and a problem into their own hands and partnered with a very good organization like Aloha Harvest. And from what I gathered, you've also tried to get more resources from your own members. This is a testament where sometimes we cannot wait for government.
State Senator Misa Lucha and local celebrity Augie T share their impressions on a recent Aid to Humanity drive-through food distribution sponsored by members of the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ in Hawaii.
You know, during COVID-19, we've seen the good side and the bad side in people, and this is one of those good sides that not only do good things for our community, but really, you know, the heart of a Christian is to serve and give back. These people here at the church is doing exactly that, and which is what we want to do. In order to bring back confidence in the community, we need to honestly serve and be empathetic to our community. So this is awesome.
We know we see a problem. You guys rolled up your sleeves and took the ball and ran with it. And I'm trying to solve an issue in our community, which is, of course, the fact that a lot of our people are unemployed. So neighbors helping neighbors. It is a great demonstration of your charity, of what your core values are. Initiatives like this really alleviate the pain and suffering of our unemployed. So whether we're opening tomorrow or whether in 2 weeks, I think is beside the point because in the interim, our people need help. And organizations like Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo really should be commended for having you folks do your part, doing your fair share of helping the needy, helping our economically disadvantaged families.
They also believe that relief projects like these offer much needed boost and motivation to residents as the Aloha State slowly reopens its economy.
We used to have the lowest unemployment rate in the country, and now we have one of the highest with almost 30%. So that is really a sad state of events, right? And of course, a lot of it is because of the fact that we have tourism as our economic driver, and tourism has dried up.
I mean, now is a time, right? We're seeing a great reset. A lot of people, especially in our community, here in Ewa, Waipahu, and Minilani, we have the largest unemployment. That means a lot of people are either making ends meet or really having a hard time putting food on the table. So if you have the ability to do this and give back to your community, what a way to show a serving heart and be Christ-like, yeah?
Both Misa Lucha and Augie T even offered some words of encouragement to other groups and communities that may have the capacity to help others in need and to emulate the global church's recent efforts.
I would like to encourage them or challenge them even to be able to step up, just like how Church of Christ or Iglesia Ni Cristo did, to be able to bring their resources together, get people who are of like minds, reach out to potential community partners so that you can solve an issue that is before us. We have a lot of economically affected families who are impacted by COVID. And I hope that you will find it in your hearts to give, find it in your hearts to be able to share whatever resources that we have. You know, when you look at our community suffering, you cannot help but step up. So hopefully, for those of us who are out there listening, let's do our fair share to support our community, to be able to alleviate the pain and suffering that our families are going through.
This drive-through is just one of several events already scheduled for this month of October alone by the members of the INC here in Hawaii. Reporting from Eva Beach, I'm Alfred Aceras, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
After a busy free agency, the Vancouver Canucks re-signed forward Adam Gaudette to a one-year extension worth just under $1 million. Eagle News correspondent Anthony Sevilla with the report.
The 2020 free agency period hasn't been a pleasant one for the Vancouver Canucks after seeing the departure of veteran guys like Chris Tanev, Jacob Markstrom, and Tyler Toffoli to Calgary and Montreal. However, the Canucks were able to retain one of their key young players for next year after the team re-signed forward Adam Gaudette to a one-year contract worth $950,000. With him signing only a one-year contract, Gaudette acknowledged the risk involved with signing a deal like that, but said the gamble is nothing new.
I think a guy like me every year is kind of a bet on himself here. You know, I've always had to work for everything I've gotten, and you know, that's never going to change throughout my career. I got to make sure I'm at the top of my game every year, and in order to, you know, just to get ice time. It's not even about a contract right now. I want to be, you know, like we heard earlier, shorten the bench late in the game. I want to be one of the guys who are out there and playing. So it's not so much, you know, another contract that I'm looking for. It's more this season, and I want to be relied on more, and I want to, you know, I'm going to have to prove that and prove myself. And but I think that's something I've had to do every year, and that's something that I embrace and I adjust to pretty well, and I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Gaudette will also be looking for a bigger role on the team next season with a new roster in Vancouver. He mentioned that he wants to be one of the players chosen when head coach Travis Green shortens the lineup at the end of tight games.
I want to be relied on more, and I want to, you know, I'm going to have to prove that and prove myself. And but I think that's something I've had to do every year, and that's something that I embrace and I adjust to pretty well, and I'm looking forward to the challenge.
The Canucks' fifth-round pick in 2015 solidified his role last season when he recorded 33 points in 59 games, and will be fighting for an increased role in another contract season. From Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
We end our program today with some music. Here is Homer Concepcion from Vancouver. He sings a song called Laan. That's our program for today. Join us again next week as we bring stories that matter to you. Visit our website at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Tiffany Alisasis. We live in interesting times.